The city believed locks were enough. They were wrong. In New Orleans, homes were entered without force, doors left sealed, windows unbroken, and by morning, people were dead in the beds where they slept. Police had no suspect, no pattern they could agree on, only a growing certainty that whoever was doing this did not need permission to come inside. Then the killer wrote to the city, not a confession, a performance. And so an entire city made a decision no one should ever have to make. They turned on their lights, they lifted their instruments, they filled the streets with music, not for celebration, but for survival, because something was listening, and no one could be sure whether sound would be enough. Welcome to the House of Syx. Tonight we present Jazz, Jitters, and Jeers. This is the story about the Axman of New Orleans. Welcome to the House of Syx. I'm Jenn.
I'm Jared.
And we are here to talk about some things. And that's why people do podcasts. Because the world's on fire. So we're podcasting.
It's a deep sigh by myself.
Do you feel like you're alone in the world? Come talk to us. We're Jenn and Jared. We're here to talk about your feelings. We're not here to talk about your feelings.
Nope.
Because that's too personal. I don't want to get into that. I've got enough feelings of my own. Thanks.
God. Oh, you're in rare form today.
I don't know what to say, except we are just going to hop right into it.
Okay. Do I
1918.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask if I had to hop.
That's dumb.
Yeah.
Why?
Keep going. It's got
No,
that.
you know what? Between the two of us, we got enough foot problems. We can't hop anywhere.
All right. Anyway, 1918.
It's 1918. We're in New Orleans. We got mystery. We got music. We got murder.
And piss in the streets.
And I think New Orleans has probably always had that.
Yep.
We have not been since.
Yeah, I don't mean it
Katrina.
rudely. It's just the way it, I had a friend of mine arrested in New Orleans because he was pissing on the street.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Why was he doing that?
Ask Shannon.
You said names. Oh, it's out. Shannon got arrested for pissing in the streets?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Now, that was a poor choice.
I wasn't there.
That was a poor choice. Now, if you get caught urinating in the streets and there are children present, you can get indecent exposure and you would have to register as an offender. But I mean, how many children are in the streets in New Orleans at the time that he was doing that?
There shouldn't be.
Hopefully not too many. Was this a New Year's Eve situation?
I have no idea.
Not New Year's Eve. What I'm trying to think. Fat Tuesday. Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras. There
That
you go.
is Fat Tuesday. It's the
Right,
same thing.
right.
That's what it means.
I don't remember. This was way back.
Wow. Way back?
Yeah.
Not just way
Right.
back?
Correct.
Right.
It's a good story.
Cool. Yeah, well, he survived that. He's doing pretty well for himself.
I have no idea. I haven't seen him in forever.
Oh dear, we're bringing
Now we're
up
talking.
a lot of
Now we're going to
personal
talk.
baggage
Now we're going to
here.
talk about our feelings.
Do you feel abandoned by your friends? To understand why this case took hold the way that it did, we need to step back into New Orleans. We need to put ourselves in the minds and the memories of these people. Okay.
Okay.
Alrighty. So let's go back. This was not a calm moment in the history of America. The First World War was ending, but the relief hadn't quite reached the people yet. Soldiers were returning home to cities already under strain. Jobs were uncertain. Prices were rising. Do you remember what pandemic hit in 1918?
I should, but it's not coming to me. I should.
The Spanish flu.
Nope, I shouldn't.
Why?
That's not what I was thinking.
This was the last major pandemic that really hit. Between late 1918 and early 1919, we're talking about 6 months here.
Okay.
An estimated 3,600 to 3,800 people in the city died from influenza. That's roughly 1% of the entire population lost in a matter of months. That's a lot of people. Hospitals were overwhelmed. Public gatherings were restricted. Death was not abstract in this case. It was visible, constant, and expected. People were freaking out, man.
Yeah.
It was a scary time.
Sure.
So when fear arrived in another form, it did not enter into a stable city. These people were already exhausted from it. I can't imagine 1% of the population dying.
Yeah. Be frightening.
You're coming with the
heat.
Yeah. Exactly. Layered on top of that pandemic was something harder to quantify, but just as corrosive. The war had only just ended. For years, Americans had lived with daily casualty counts, government propaganda, and constant expectation that catastrophe would arrive without warning. Even those who never left home became absorbed with that stress. Violence had become distant, abstract, and constant all at one time. It was just a really weird time. So by 1918, people were not just afraid. I think they were pretty much just worn down by the constantness of everything. New Orleans was not just any American city. It never has been. Louisiana itself is just a weird place, I gotta say, from an American culture perspective. It's absolutely amazing with the Cajun and French influences, but it's a strange place.
No, I agree that it is very unique. That's the only way to put it. It is that I don't think about it often, but it absolutely is a very unique place, a unique state even.
I do enjoy whenever we watch documentaries or something that happens there. The dialect alone is fascinating.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. Now, by 1918, New Orleans was shaped by layers of history that most U.S. cities don't share. They had both French and Spanish colonial rule, deep Catholic roots in a largely Protestant nation, strong African, Caribbean, and Haitian cultural influence. This created a city that didn't operate on simple my God bless America, I can't even fucking read. Short pause to get a drink because Jen is on the struggle bus. It is 2:30 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon, and just Hollywood insight here. I write a script for each episode, and I research and I practice, and I try to get it all out, and I try to be fluid and fluent and forward and footloose and fancy-free. But sometimes I just get really flustered. Those are a lot of F words.
Today, the wheels aren't turning.
I think the wheels are about to fall off, if I'm being perfectly honest.
They're wobbly.
They're a little wobbly. So, yeah, most of you won't ever get to see any of that because I cut out all the flubs and the flops because it's fuckery. So I was trying to think of how many F words I could get out in a 1 minute time period. I think that was like 12.
Okay.
You're welcome. Anyways, back to the story at hand here. This created a city that did not operate on simple binaries. Neighborhoods mattered, community networks mattered, and rumor traveled faster than official information ever could. On top of which, music was not just entertainment here. It was communication. It was presence. It was a way that communities asserted life in the face of loss. And you'll hear that in a lot of the jazz music that even gets played today.
Yeah, I like jazz.
You do like jazz. I'm okay with it. Yeah. I'm not offended by jazz, but I'm also not.
I mean, I don't ride in a car and listen to jazz. Jazz is the perfect thing to just have playing in the background while you're cleaning the house or doing something.
I don't want to listen to jazz when I'm cleaning the house. I want a little indie pop to put a little pep in my step. You know?
Sure. That too.
I don't really. Jazz is fine.
It is.
It's fine. I will say, though, that while I was unemployed, I was trying to convince Jared that I didn't need to go back to work. So I would have dinner made, and the house was sparkling. The dog was walked, and he'd get home, and I'd have smooth jazz playing in the background.
And then I said, who the fuck is this?
And then he said, get back to work. It's not what you said, but you got to pay bills. So I went back to work. Now we're paying bills. Back to New Orleans. Then we have the city's immigrant populations. Now, as we know, the United States is a country built on immigrants. And by the early 20th century, New Orleans had the largest Italian community in the American South. That's interesting. Many were Sicilian immigrants who had arrived with little and worked their way into small business ownership, especially grocery stores and produce markets. Economically, they were very visible. Socially, not very accepted. Italians in New Orleans occupied an unstable position in the racial hierarchy of the time. This is important. At the time, Italians were often not considered white. Mm-hmm. Neither were the Irish or the Greeks. This is strange to me. They were stereotyped as criminal, violent, or inherently suspect.
Okay.
I don't know why. Newspapers regularly use ethnic slurs when referring to Italian communities, language that reflected how normalized that prejudice was. I'm not going to use racial slurs because I think any racial slur is bad and it makes me super uncomfortable.
Yep.
All right. So this was not abstract bias, the newspapers. New Orleans had already seen anti-Italian mob violence decades earlier. Now this is crowd mobs, not organized crime mobs. We're not quite there yet, and we're in the wrong part of the country for that. These were fueled by suspicion, resentment, and political convenience. So by 1918, Italian families lived with a clear understanding they were necessary to the city's economy, but expendable in its social imagination, if you will. So there's visible, successful, but resented for it?
Okay.
Like, that's not a great position to be in historically. We don't like that. All right. It's also important to understand how little faith many people had in official protection at the time. This was an era when institutions routinely failed the public. The government had promised stability and they got war. Public health systems had promised control and delivered mass death in the form of the flu. Policing, especially in cities like New Orleans, was inconsistent, under-resourced, and deeply shaped by bias and corruption. People did not assume help would arrive in time. They assumed survival was personal or communal or just freaking luck. This is not, yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody's sitting around going, I think the system has us covered. It's going to be fine. Okay. And then there was the press. How do I feel about the press around this point in time? What do we call it? What do we call it? We call it yellow journalism because it's all about the sensationalism. They were not just reporting events. They were the primary way people understood reality beyond their own little circle. Competition was fierce. Accuracy was like, fluid. Sensation sold papers. Stories traveled fast. They went unchecked, uncorrected, and fear didn't just spread. It was amplified, shaped, and repeated until it was pretty much inescapable. So when something frightening begins to stir in the city's consciousness, it did not encounter skepticism, it encountered readiness. You have a population already shaped by death, a culture accustomed to storytelling and symbolism, an immigrant community already viewed through suspicion, and institutions that didn't have confidence. This is a messy soup of scary. I didn't write that down in the script, I can tell you that. Okay? So let's talk about what happens. Okay? We're in the timeline now. Incident number 1. It is May 23rd, 1918. And we have Joseph and Catherine Maggio. They're Italian, remember? Some of these names are deeply Italian. Let's begin in the early hours. Joseph and Catherine were Italian immigrants who ran a small grocery in New Orleans. They lived behind their store, as many shopkeepers did at the time. Home and livelihood were not separate things. So if violence entered one, it entered both. Joseph was in his early 40s. Catherine's exact age, we're not sure. It is told inconsistently, so I'm not even going to guess. Let's say around the same age. Sometime after midnight, while the Maggios were asleep, someone entered the residence quietly. There is no sign of a loud struggle, no reports of neighbors hearing screams. What was discovered later was devastating. Joseph Maggio was found alive but gravely injured. I hate this part, but I have to tell it. His throat had been cut with a straight razor. He also showed head trauma consistent with being struck by a heavy object. Catherine was found behind him with similar injuries. I don't want to repeat that. Both were taken for medical care. Joseph died shortly after. Catherine survived briefly, but then died 2 days later.
Okay.
This is bad news bears. Police searching the scene reported finding a straight razor and signs of blunt trauma consistent with an axe or a hatchet. We've told axe stories before. It's not pretty. This combination of tools would later stand out, but at the time, it just caused a whole lot of confusion because people were just like, what the crap happened here? Nothing of value appeared to be stolen. One detail reported by the police at the time was the presence of bloody clothing at the scene. Officers inferred that the attacker may have changed clothes before leaving, which gives an air of premeditation or at least understanding of what they can't just walk around with bloody clothes. It's not London in 1888. It's not, Jack the Ripper or the leather apron. Do you remember that story? I had to go back and look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they needed a Dexter suit.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
Just cover the whole room in plastic.
Cover himself in plastic.
He did.
Yeah.
He did as a smart guy, Dexter. You should not, even if you're doing it for good, you should not kill.
Yeah. Thanks.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
I'm just reinforcing. Anyways, initially this case was treated as an isolated domestic or neighborhood crime. Police questioned individuals close to the family. There was no immediate suggestion that this was the start of something bigger. So this is just horrific, not serial.
Right.
Right. That is going to change because on June 27th, 1918, Louis Bessemer and Harriet Lowe, another grocery-linked residence, was attacked. Louis ran a grocery, and behind the store there were living quarters. That's where the attack happened at night. Harriet Lowe lived with him in the residential space behind his shop. Contemporary sources frequently describe her as his mistress. This detail mattered in 1918. This would have been frowned upon. It shaped how newspapers framed the attack. It shaped how police spoke about the case and how sympathy was distributed to these two people. They were found alive but severely injured. Both had suffered head wounds. Lowe was struck near the ear and left with permanent facial paralysis. Obviously survived. Bessemer's injuries were also severe, though he too also survived. So that's good. They were discovered in the morning by a bakery delivery driver, someone just following a routine route who found the scene by chance. Police found a hatchet belonging to Bessemer at the property. In some accounts, it was located in the bathroom, which indicates cleanup, probably.
Yeah.
If it was in the bathroom.
I don't know. I always have a hatchet in the bathroom.
That is where we keep our hatchet.
Right.
Do we have a hatchet?
I don't think so.
I do not advise. I don't think we need one. That's just asking for trouble if you ask me. That's fine. We don't need one. Nothing of value appeared to have been stolen. This was the first time police clearly documented a pattern that would later feel important. The attacker did not bring a weapon. He used one found at the scene. This feels intentional.
Yeah.
If you're sneaking into somebody's house, you're not doing good. So let's be clear on that. But also, you're going there to do some bad news bears things, and you don't take anything with you. You're like, oh, I'll probably find something.
Oh, look, there's a hatchet next to the toilet.
I mean, I don't know what to say.
It doesn't have to be next to the toilet, but he found a hatchet. It worked out for him. Didn't work out for them, though.
It did not. In the last house, I assume that a straight razor is pretty common in any man's household.
Yep.
So you just go in and you're like, just...
Maybe that was part of the game.
Finding the...
What can I kill them with today?
I don't like that. Now we come to one of the most debated incidents. We don't know if this is absolutely the same dude here. And I'm assuming it's a dude because unless you're Lizzie Borden, you don't just go around swinging axes. Okay? I don't think I've even picked up an axe. Not one time. I'm not saying ladies can't pick up axes because I have seen those lumberjills and they are clearly badasses. And good for them, ladies. You throw those asses, and your ass.
Both.
You can throw all you want, anything that you want. It's fine. I just personally, I'm not going to touch it. I wouldn't know what to do with an axe if I freaking had it in my hand.
I think you'd know what to do with it.
It would be very poorly
It would scare
executed.
the shit out of me.
Have you seen me at Top Golf?
It would scare me.
I can't swing for shit. I'm going to tell you that right now. Don't give Jen an axe. I don't know what I was talking about, but all this is to say that early on the morning of August 5th, 1918, Anna Schneider, now I want you to note the last name here because this is not an Italian woman. In fact, it was not said what her ethnicity was, but that name Schneider, that's a German surname.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
She is 28 years old and 8 months pregnant. I'm really sorry to tell this story. She was attacked in her apartment. She later told police she woke to find a man standing over her bed. She was struck repeatedly in the face and head and left bleeding heavily. Her husband, returning home from work later that night, discovered her injured. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
She survived and later gave birth to a healthy baby.
Okay, that's better news than Axman.
That is pretty good news all around. I'm sure she was still injured. That's terrible.
Yeah.
There was no sign of forced entry. Police concluded that the weapon was likely a nearby object rather than an axe. Wouldn't they have found the nearby object? I guess they could have taken it with them.
Maybe.
But
yeah.
a small amount of money was reported missing, but also if it was like $2, I'd probably have $2 in my wallet right now. If it went missing, I wouldn't know it.
No, you wouldn't.
Don't steal my $2. I actually have $4 because I have two $2 bills.
Oh, that's right.
That my son gave me.
Yep.
That he used to pay me for something else.
Yep.
For something. I don't know where he's getting $2 bills, but anyways. So why does this case appear in these timelines at all? At the time, police publicly suggested it, quote unquote, might be related to the earlier grocery attacks. That suggestion entered the record early and stuck, even though the mechanics differ. It's included because it shaped how the series was understood in real time. Her case, though, complicates the idea of a single victim profile ethnically, socially, mechanically. Some historians emphasize how women sleeping alone were viewed as inherently suspect or unprotected in 1918 policing culture. Okay. Almost like, well, if you're at home sleeping by yourself, what were you doing? Like, that's your fault, lady. Like she was walking the streets.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would you suspect that because a woman is at home alone sleeping, her husband's at work, you got to make a living, man, that she's suspect? That's...
I think you'd be more suspect if you had another man in your bed.
Which she did not.
Right.
To be clear.
So, I didn't want to be home alone. You were at work, so I got to fill in.
Is that what I'm supposed to do when you go on
Nope,
vacation?
you're not.
Vacation. Work trips?
Nope. I'd prefer you not to. Do what you need to do, but I mean, I'd really prefer you not to.
That's a strong statement. You do what you need to, but I'd prefer you didn't. Okay. Anyways. Now, we need to pause and talk about a case that appears in many timelines for this story, but is not without controversy. On the night of August 10th, 1918, Joseph Joe Romano, an elderly man often described as a former grocer, was attacked in his New Orleans home. Romano lived with his two nieces. That night, while they slept, someone entered the house quietly. They were awakened by the sound of movement and found their uncle badly injured. Romano suffered severe head wounds consistent with blunt force trauma. An axe belonging to the household was found nearby, bloody. There were no signs of forced entry and no meaningful theft reported. Romano was transported for medical care but died several days later from his injury. This case is often included because of the nighttime entry, household axe used as a weapon, victim asleep in his home, no clear robbery motive. These similarities led police and later writers to fold Romano's death into the growing Axman narrative. However, this case is debated because details in the record are sparse. Some reports lack the mechanical specifics seen in earlier attacks, such as the door panel removal, which is how this perpetrator got into different homes, and the victim profile because he was an elderly man. However, it's hard to say. It's a toss-up. It sounds like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like most crimes maybe happen at night. Is that facts?
Statistically,
like robberies, and not robberies, like burglaries or home invasions, wouldn't that normally happen at night?
I would think, but also maybe not, because when people go to work, the house is empty.
I should never try to be a criminal. I don't think I'd be very good at crime.
I mean, I guess that's good.
Yeah. I am a rule follower.
Yeah, you are.
I am very much a rule follower. I don't like breaking the rules. I don't want to break the law. I do speed. But that's it. I feel like as far as laws go, that's a pretty... Everybody speeds, except for your son.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I was going to say there's only one bigger rule follower than yourself, and that would be my oldest son.
Yeah.
So.
That kid, when we were moving him from one college to another, and we packed up all of our cars and we were driving, Jared headed off first and I was right behind him, and then your son was following me. And at one point, Jared called me, and it was just like 30 minutes or an hour into the drive, and he was like, "Is he still behind you?" And I was like, "Dude, I blew his doors off an hour ago. That kid's 30 minutes behind me. Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
Like, he is the slowest driver on the
He's a good
planet.
guy. He's very safe. He's a good guy.
I would lose my mind in the car with him. I'd be like, "We're never getting out of the neighborhood." Anyway. On the night of March 10th, 1919, in Gretna, which is just across the Mississippi from New Orleans, Charles and Rosie Cortimiglia and their infant daughter Mary were attacked in their home. A neighbor heard screams and rushed over. Charles and Rosie were found alive but were badly injured, both suffering from head wounds consistent with axe blows. Unfortunately, their daughter Mary did not survive. This was an infant. This is very hard to talk about. There is no way to get around it. The Cortimiglia case marks a clear escalation in harm and fear, and it's one of the reasons that this story lodged itself so deeply in public memory. An axe was found on the property, reportedly on the back porch. Police noted a critical detail. A panel had been chiseled out of the back door, suggesting deliberate, quiet entry. And this matched other entries into the previous homes. This removal of the door panel would later be cited as one of the strongest operational consistencies across the attributed cases. This attack reignited fear across the city, especially because it involved a child, and it occurred after a long pause. Within days, the public atmosphere shifted dramatically. This is where the city snaps, I assume. This is, a baby is harmed.
Right.
I think anybody can agree that's worst case scenario.
Yeah, that would change your attitude on a few things.
I don't like this one. On October 27th, 1919, this is a couple months later, this is the most disputed incident. We don't know if it fits, but we got to talk about it. Mike Pepitone, an Italian immigrant and a grocer, was killed in his home. Pepitone was asleep when this occurred. He suffered head wounds consistent with an axe. His wife was injured, but she survived. The axe was found at the property. There was no indication of major robbery. It occurred at night in a private residence while the victim slept. Mechanically, this echoes earlier cases, but this occurred months after a letter that is received, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, and the citywide panic that followed it. So at this point, the Axeman had already become a legend, but it's so far after the other incidents, and I just don't know why. I don't know why they don't attribute it, because they talk about how, I don't know. I'm confused about this.
I'm confused at your confusion. Of course, I still haven't gotten over the name Pepitone. Gosh, what a great Italian name. Pepitone. That's a great Italian name.
Cortimiglia, Pepitone,
Yeah.
Romano, Maggio.
Exactly. Yeah.
These are just classic Italian
Yeah,
names here. Pepitone that's pretty, yeah. So let's talk about how policing worked in this time period. I like to always kind of dig into this a little bit because I think it's important to try to figure out why crimes were not solved or were solved with the information that they had available to them at the time. At the start of the 20th century, American policing was still primarily about maintaining public order. It was not solving complex crimes after they occurred. They just, first of all, they weren't equipped to do that. Detective divisions did exist, but they were small. And also, there were no centralized records, obviously, no standard way to link crimes across districts. Each attack was handled individually as its own event. There was no concept of a serial offender in the modern sense. What we see now as a pattern had to be noticed manually, where people were comparing notes across cases that were often separated by weeks, neighborhoods, profiles, jurisdictions. Like, this was all done extremely manually. And by detectives that were not educated in the field of forensics, profiling, all of those things. Crime scene preservation, as we understand it today, did not exist. Homes were entered by neighbors, family members, doctors, priests, police, often in rapid succession, and evidence was simply disturbed by the act of rendering aid. I mean, even today, when people are attended to by medical emergency professionals, that just will destroy a crime scene. Obviously, you have to do that first because you have to render aid first, but it will destroy a crime scene as they're just stomping all over it. Axes or hatchets found at the scene were frequently household tools, which made tracing ownership pointless. Everybody had an axe in New Orleans at this point in time. Fingerprinting technically existed. When did we learn about fingerprinting?
Oh, gosh.
When did it come into being? It came into being in 1901.
Oh.
So by the time this case hit, it had been around for 17 years, but it was inconsistently applied and rarely useful on wooden handles or bloody surfaces. This would have smeared fingerprints all over the place. Wood is hard to get fingerprints on. Not like our wood that's all polished and shiny. This would be porous wood that wouldn't necessarily hold a fingerprint very well. Just saying. Blood analysis could not distinguish individuals. All that they could have told you at the time was if the blood was human or not. They would not have been able to tell.
It's red.
Yeah, it's liquid.
Yeah.
Sometimes. There was no way to determine time of death at this time with much precision. In other words, even when police wanted answers, the tools available to them to get them just wasn't that simple. They just weren't there.
Yep.
And I have to say as well that, again, they were peacekeeping officers for the most part. They were trying to keep order in the street. It wasn't so much about solving crime.
Yep.
So regardless of what they did or didn't do, they were not equipped to handle this situation.
I have pictures just in my head, like trying to get these fingerprints. And again, these guys have not been trained in this besides maybe a 5-second class. And you'd be clueless and you'd probably look like a fool.
I get the feeling, reading through all of the information of this case, they didn't even try.
Right.
There was no effort whatsoever to collect fingerprints.
And I even wonder what the technique was. Honestly, I actually do. I mean, were they, you hear the term lifting fingerprints. Did they lift them then? Or did they look at the fingerprints kind of like on the surface and that's,
I can answer this question for you.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So they did use the fingerprint dust. I don't know if it was the same as it is today, but they used the fingerprinting dust. And then they would take photographs of it.
That's what I figured.
Up close photographs.
That's what I figured.
That's the best that they could do.
Right.
There was no lifting.
That's what I figured.
They identified it. And even today we have computers that can help go through fingerprints, although it's still a pretty manual process of matching fingerprints in the sense that they had to look at it and compare it, and they could use markers. But for the most part, they would just look at it and go, yep, that looks the same.
Yeah, I'm sure there was no margin of error.
I would say that it was probably something like 70%. 70% of them were wrong. Yeah. So police did make arrests in this case. They questioned neighbors. They detained acquaintances. In some cases, they arrested suspects briefly and then released them when evidence failed to hold. This wasn't restraint, it was necessity. Without reliable proof, cases depended heavily on witness statements, confessions, and circumstantial suspicion. There was nothing. Nobody saw anything. They barely even heard anything.
Yep.
There were no witnesses. They got nothing. It would also be dishonest to pretend that bias played no role in this situation. Many victims were Italian immigrants, a group that occupied an unstable position in the racial and social hierarchy at the time. They were not always seen as white, and they were often associated unfairly with criminal stereotypes. This affected how cases were framed, how aggressively they were pursued, and how quickly attention was paid to them. This does not mean that the police ignored the attacks. It does mean the victims did not benefit from the same assumptions of innocence, respectability, and urgency afforded to more powerful groups. The police didn't ignore it, but they were like, all right, we'll get to it.
Right.
I'm sure it's fine. They're just grocers.
Right.
I use grocers instead of Italians. It felt less dirty. So the idea that these attacks might be connected emerged gradually, not from forensic breakthroughs, but just because it kept happening.
Right.
Repetition. The nighttime attacks, victims asleep, weapons found in the home and at the scene, little or no theft. Even then, police statements were cautious and sometimes contradictory. Some officials suggested a link, others dismissed it. This lack of consensus filtered directly into press coverage and public perception. So was this investigation bungled? We have to ask ourselves. Not in the cartoonish sense, like you can like Charlie Chaplin bumbling around on a frickin' set. There were missed opportunities. There were assumptions that narrowed the focus too quickly, the focus on the Italian population. There were moments where stronger coordination might have helped, but most of the issues here were structural. Police were trying to solve a modern problem with not modern tools. They just didn't have. So I don't think this was necessarily their fault. They could have paid a little bit more attention to it. But I think the gap between what people expected authorities to do and what they were actually capable of doing is where the problem lies.
Sure.
They just weren't capable. It's not that they dropped a ball. They weren't playing the right game.
I like that.
That was a good one.
Well done.
That was good. Yep. You're welcome. By early 1919, police had no suspect they could hold, no weapons they could trace, no confessions they could trust. What they did have was a city on edge, and who was there to fill the silence? Who do you think it was? The fucking newspapers, you better believe it. I don't like the press. All these stories, the press just makes it worse. And look, I don't even know any journalists. Do we know any journalists? I don't think I know any journalists.
I don't think I do.
I think there are plenty of respectable
Of course.
journalists out there. I'm not saying that the press is bad and we should get rid of the press. I'm just saying that, TMZ and BuzzFeed and National Enquirer, they're not helping things. Why don't you just present the facts? Now, I like a good sensational story, okay? I like gossip. I do. I want to listen to the gossip. I don't necessarily want to be a part of the gossip. I don't want to be the gossip.
No, you don't ever want to be the gossip.
I don't want to be the gossip, but I suppose in that sense I do contribute to the problem because I'm like, ooh, you got some juicy gossip? I'm here to listen. Oh, I listen to, it's interesting, but also knock it off. And I don't know what to do with that. Now, I will say this. One of the most powerful acts the press performed in this case was naming. They called this attacker the Axman.
Okay.
Not very inventive.
Nope.
But the newspapers turned a series of disconnected assaults into a single coherent figure, and they created a character. Once that name existed, every new incident, even loosely similarly kind of involved, could be pulled into it. And this is how legends are formed.
Could have come up with a better name. The grocer getter, instead of the grocery getter.
Instead of the grocery getter?
Yeah.
Like that's a thing right now?
Yeah, that's a car. The grocery getter. I want you to cut this out. But
okay. I think that's a good idea. Probably going to leave it in just because of that. Like what?
I was trying to come up with some better names, but I fell short.
Well, we'll get there. So we got to talk about the letter, because this is what really cemented this case into the psyche of New Orleans. In March of 1919, the Times-Picayune newspaper, I am sure that is a Native American name, I guess that would be a French, like a Cajun name.
Probably.
The Times-Picayune received a handwritten message from someone claiming to be the Axman, and the paper published it. Important clarification here. The existence of the letter is a historical fact. It was sent to the newspaper. There's no doubt about it. But the identity and truthfulness of the author are not. So by printing the letter, the newspaper unintentionally shifted the case. The story was no longer about violence, it was about performance. And the attacker, real or imagined, we're not sure, was now speaking directly to the city. I'm going to read you this letter, and I wanted to do it in a neutral voice that is unbiased, and it's just reporting the facts. But I don't have that capability.
I didn't think so.
So what you're about to hear, I have no control over. All right? This is the Axman letter. Read exactly as written. Hell. March 13th, 1919. Esteemed mortal of New Orleans, they have never caught me and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleans and your foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with blood and brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. If you wish, you may tell the police to beware me. Naturally, I am a reasonable spirit. I take no offense at the way they have conducted their investigations in the past. In fact, they have been so utterly stupid as to amuse me. Ha! But tell me this, I shall not always be so easy to satisfy. I shall make my next move more terrible than ever. I shall leave a few more victims in my wake to prove that I can do. They think they have frightened me off. I laugh at them. Their threats and their silly attempts to trap me have been laughable. I fear no man and no law. I am infinitely superior to any mortal. On next Tuesday night, I am going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I am going to make a little proposition to you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I pass over. If everyone has a jazz band going, well then so much the better for the people. One thing is certain, and that is that some of your people who do not jazz it on that specific Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe. Well, as I am cold and crave the warmth of my native to Tartarus, what the fuck? And this is about the time I leave your earthly home, I will cease my discourse, hoping that thou wilt publish this, that it may go well with thee. I have been, am, and will be the worst spirit that ever existed, either in fact or realm or fancy. The Axeman. What the fuck was that I just read? And first of all, I don't know how I got through that whole thing without going, what the fuck? Wait, I think I did at one point. But anyways, what do you think about that?
Pretty confident. And he likes jazz.
He likes to jazz it.
Yeah.
He actually said that some of your people who do not jazz it on that specific Tuesday night, jazz it?
Yeah.
Is that like turning jazz into a verb? So, the letter named a night, Tuesday, March 19th, 1919, 12:15 a.m. What? that letter...
Well, what's it tell to you? What bothers you?
Very, like, give me a frickin' break. What is this? I have been, am, and will be the worst spirit that ever existed in fact or realm or fancy, that it may go well with thee. Like, who talks like this? Yeah. Just who... Listen, if this motherfucker was alive in the year of 2025, this guy would be on some fancy fantasy fanfic website acting like he was an elf of the realm or something. Yep. This guy would be so into Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons. It's not even funny. Like, this guy's entire identity would be wrapped up in his Sims characters.
Okay. I like it.
This guy, I don't even know what to say about this. This guy is a douche.
You also need to remember we're in 2026. Had to remind you too many times
lately.
We
are in 2026.
Had to remind you too many times lately. Because we're only on day 4.
We're on day 4. It's going to be 2025 in my head for at least another 4 weeks.
Oh, okay.
We're going to be well into February when I'm going to... All right, you're right.
I just wanted some timetable. I got it.
Just jazz it. Oh, this This guy. What a derp. Like, go fuck yourself. I wish the newspaper had printed it and the end they were like, hey, Axman, go fuck yourself. That's how we feel about you, buddy. You can just get fucked.
Really hit you.
Yeah, so this letter did not just threaten violence. It offered conditional safety. If there was jazz playing in your home when the Axeman passed over the city, then you were spared. Yeah, so that night, that Tuesday night, New Orleans responded. Now, this is pretty interesting. Homes that had never hosted music before opened their doors. Families borrowed instruments. Neighbors pooled musicians. Jazz poured out of windows, onto porches, into streets. Professional bands played late. Amateur players did their best. Phonographs ran nonstop. Some people gathered out of fear, others out of defiance, some because it felt better to not be alone in this whole situation, and some, crucially, felt like they were doing something better than just sitting around and waiting. It is tempting to describe this as mass hysteria. I think this is more like collective problem solving in a situation that they had no control over.
Agreed.
And police could not promise protection. So I don't think that these people were being naive by any stretch of the imagination. They were just being human. And jazz is not incidental here. New Orleans was and is its birthplace. Jazz lived in neighborhoods, not in concert halls. It was participatory, accessible, communal. This made it perfect. They were saved by sound. They were saved by their love of music. No confirmed Axeman attack occurred on that night. That fact has been repeated so often, but it's important to be precise here because just because there wasn't an attack doesn't mean this doesn't mean jack.
No.
In this whole thing, because there were not attacks on a lot of nights. Okay. By morning, the music stopped. Something had shifted. Fear had been externalized, and that did not solve the case. But it did something else. It showed how quickly authority can transfer from institution to narratives when answers are nowhere to be found. So, yeah, a lot of people like to say that after that night, the attacks stopped. Coincidence? I don't even know. But then we have the Pepitone attack happen after that. But that's why it's not considered an official link to this case, because it happened after the letter, which seems like a really stupid way to decide what cases are attributed. I just think, what we know and what we don't know, okay? We know that between 1918 and 1919, victims were attacked while sleeping. Entry was quiet. Household tools, usually axes and hatchets, were used. Robbery, not consistent, or even, I don't even know if it exists. Somebody noticed a little bit of money was like, that's just, okay, sure you didn't leave your pocketbook somewhere? I don't even know. And this happened mostly within working class homes. It is worth noting that many New Orleans working class homes of the period used thin wooden door panels designed for ventilation, not security, which made quiet entry possible without structural damage to the door. Also, there was an entire podcast dedicated to whether or not a man could slither his way through a door panel. You think about modern door panels are pretty small, but these were somebody thin, or I don't know. I think somebody could have gotten it.
Agreed.
No big deal. What we don't know, we do not know who committed these attacks. We do not know whether every incident mentioned here is even connected to the others. We don't know who the author of the letter is, or if it was just a hoax, and we don't know why the attacks stopped. The historical record fractures in predictable places. Names are misspelled, ages are missing, timelines are wrong. Some victims are remembered vividly, others barely a line in the newspaper. Like this just all over the place, and frankly, it wasn't reported on correctly half the time. Okay. So let's talk about actual suspects and theories. You ready for this?
Sure.
We're going to decide who did it, and then we can just talk about how each one breaks down. Frank Oxley is the most frequently named suspect in the contemporary reporting. Oxley was arrested on March of 1919, shortly after the Axman letter appeared in the newspapers. He is described as unstable. It's helpful. A former sailor, and crucially, he had allegedly threatened his wife with an axe once. Now, I'm going to tell you guys something. Jared has never threatened me with an axe. Let me be more clear. Jared has never threatened me.
Thank you. Let's
just go.
Let's start there.
Not with an axe.
Right.
But first, he has never threatened me. So there's that. To the police in 1919, this matters. They were not looking for behavior profiles. They were looking for someone dangerous and plausibly violent. And I'm sure they thought, sailor threatened his wife with an axe. He did it. Yeah. Oxley did fit that shape. But that's where the case against him ends. That's all we have in evidence against him. There is no evidence placing him at any crime scene, no connection to the victims that we know of, no corroboration tying him to multiple attacks. He was questioned, and then he was released. Oxley is remembered not because the case against him was strong, but because everybody was like, yeah, it seems like the guy. It's gotta be him, right? Sure. Now we have a modern named suspect here, Frank Doc Mumphrey, also known as Leon Joseph Monfrey, which those are two very different names.
Yeah.
I would like to point out.
Yeah.
And yet those two names are associated with one man. Frank Leon, Doc Joseph. Sure. Okay, got you. He was associated with the jazz scene in New Orleans. Okay, here's where the jazz comes in, obviously. He liked to jazz it. He was connected after the Axman letter compelled the entire city to play jazz music that night. Obviously, this implication is obvious. If someone stood to benefit from the panic financially or socially, then Mumphrey had the motive because he wanted to get hired to play in a jazz band on Tuesday night.
That's valid. Okay. I'm with you now. I'm following.
This is a slippery slope here. How many letters is he going to have to write to get business churning? That's literally the only reason why his name was brought up. Because he liked to jazz it.
That's a lot of work to get a one-night gig.
To get a gig for one night.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in that letter... Whew. Yeah. Okay there, bud. Another modern theory separates the crimes from the letter entirely. It suggests that Joseph John Davila, a jazz composer, may have written the Axman letter not as the killer, but as a provocateur. The letter coincided neatly with a boom in Axman-themed jazz music and sheet music sales. I can't make this up. There were actual jazz songs named after the Axman.
That makes sense.
Does it?
It does.
Does it?
It does.
Okay, well. Under this theory, the letter was all theater. It was a hoax that exploited an existing panic, and this does not explain the murders, but, you know. Now we're going to go with broader theory models here and just kind of talk about it in the ether, because we're out of people to talk about. We don't, newsflash, we don't know who did it.
Got it.
Okay. So the question is, was this a serial offender or a serial opportunity situation? Could one person have done all of these different attacks?
Is that a question?
This is a question. Do you think it could have been, I'm not going to ask you what you think yet, but it could have been one person versus these are just all separate attacks that just have no...
Do you answer that now or wait?
One person, or this is multiple attackers committing similar crimes folded together by the press and fear and the Axman letter and all of that shit.
Yeah, it's one guy.
You think it's one guy?
It's one guy. For most part, it's not like 3 or 4. It's one guy, maybe one copy, but it's one guy. Yeah.
You think it's one guy? Well, hold on.
Damn
You're
it.
jumping ahead.
Hey.
You're jumping ahead. The biggest question I would have is why did it stop?
Sure.
Now, if it is one person, it stopped. Historically speaking, serial offenders stop when huge life changes happen, like loss of a loved one, birth of a child, marriage, or they go to jail, or they die.
Yeah.
That's why serial offenders stop. Okay. So we don't have any. I mean, New Orleans is a big place, so it's kind of hard to track all the people that died, went to prison, or had life changes. That's too many. First of all, it was a man. I'm just going to say that. It has to be a man. It just does. No offense.
Yeah.
I don't think women go around, again, unless you're Lizzie Borden, because we know she did it.
Yeah.
Obviously. So, yeah, you think it is one dude. You think one dude, maybe one of them is a copycat.
Right.
You think it's one guy?
Yep.
So, you know me. How did I decide who did this? Or if it was one person? I had to do some research.
Okay, that was an easy answer. I was looking for something deeper.
Nope. I started doing research and looking things up. I think statistically speaking, statistics here.
Yeah.
Okay? I do not think there is a single Axman in New Orleans. I think we're looking at a cluster of violent home invasion axe attacks committed by more than one person. Now, here's the thing. As soon as the newspaper printed an axe attack, it's now become collective knowledge. The newspaper said that they used an axe from the house. So I feel like people were reading the news and they were like, axes do make good weapons. They chop down trees just fine. I wonder what they would do to somebody's noggin. Mm-hmm. So, they're like, well, yeah, that's a really good point. Axes do make good weapons. And I think statistically, the victim profiles are inconsistent. There were some Italian grocers, but there were also non-Italians. There was also a pregnant woman alone. There was a family. This didn't go from, I don't know.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
The profiles are different. The mechanics are just the easiest way to break into somebody's home, into these houses, was to remove these door panels.
Right.
It's just easy. It wasn't a commonality in that sense. It was just that's the easiest way to get in the door.
Yeah.
Breaking windows is loud. Shimmying this panel out of the way, it just makes sense. I also will say that, anybody that's going to get all bloodied up is going to change their clothes or try to clean up before they go walk out on the street. That's not a premeditation or I don't think that's a consistency between one or the other.
No, agreed.
I just think that it just makes most sense. Clean up before you go out.
Oh, I agree.
So I just, axes were common. Every single house would have had one. Nighttime home invasions are not rare. I think that's pretty normal. The only thing that bugs me about the multiple perpetrators is that there doesn't seem like any sense to why. Nothing was stolen.
Correct.
In some cases, the people weren't even totally killed. I mean, I think if you hit somebody in the head with that kind of an object, you would think that it would take them out.
Yeah.
Gone. They'd be done for. You would think.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, that's actually not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking, but yeah.
What were you thinking?
No, I'm going back to there's still a pattern.
I think think that there's a pattern, but I also think that because all of these cases were in the newspaper,
Right.
I think that they were copying them. I
Yeah.
think that there were multiple offenders. This is the same environment. I think you have convergence because of economic stress, racial tension, weak policing. It's not like you have to worry about getting caught. These guys are just trying to...
But they still didn't take anything.
I hear you. But, I mean, you do have this racial tensions, and I think you have to look at it from the sense of these gosh darn people in our city that are ruining it for the rest of them or whatever they thought. Like, I don't think like that, but people look...
They were taking it upon themselves, each individual, is to handle a situation.
I think so.
Yeah.
That would be where I'm going. I think that this is just somebody saw a newspaper story and it became a script and the script got reused.
No, it makes sense. It does. It's a possibility.
Modern, and this is something that I found interesting, modern criminology shows that once a violent method is publicized, similar crimes spike briefly and then taper off, especially when the method is simple and accessible. And at this point in time, this would have been simple and accessible.
Right.
This is not speculation. This is observed behavior.
Yeah.
The letter is most certainly, in my opinion, not from whoever did any of these murders. This is probably a journalist because I think that they just wanted to sell papers.
And here's some jazz.
A journalist that loves some smooth jazz.
Yeah.
It did appear during a lull in the case, and it brought the attention all back. Minimal risk. I mean, who's going to catch a letter writer in 1919? Like, they don't know the difference between different typewriters.
Yeah.
There's no handwriting analysis happening. I don't think so. I think an opportunist, like a journalist, wrote the letter, published it in their paper, and then, just banked on all that fear and just to sell some papers. And, jazz might have scared this demon away, but most likely I think that either this was multiple offenders and they got whoever they got, or just, they died.
Right.
They went to jail for something else.
Right.
They just,
We'll never know.
This is an interesting one because there are so few suspects to even point at. Frank Oxley is the most commonly cited, but he most certainly, there's absolutely no proof.
Right.
And it's just, there's like a collective, This is a weird one. There's definitely, I can't wrap this one up for you in a bow.
Okay, it's all right.
Nope. So the Axman of New Orleans did not change the city because he was caught. Definitely not. He changed it because it's never explained. In absence of resolution, New Orleans was forced to confront something it had rarely faced in a concentrated way. Violence without motive, pattern without clarity, and fear without an identifiable enemy. You can't really pin this on anybody. Before these attacks, New Orleans was no stranger to danger. The city had been shaped by disease, poverty, corruption, racial tension, labor unrest. Violence existed, but it was usually contextualized. You could make sense of it, and this just didn't make sense. It disrupted all of that logic. These crimes offered no demands or warning. This case also marked a turning point in the relationship between crime and the media in the city. Newspapers did not simply report on the Axeman, they shaped him through repetition, selective framing, and sensational language. How I feel about that. A series of violent acts was transformed into a singular figure with a name and personality, eventually a voice. I just used it on this podcast to express that demon's words. We're just going to wrap that on that. I will say this, though. I think that New Orleans absorbed the mystery the way it just absorbs so many things, and I think it all goes back to the music and the culture. the narrative, the endurance of New Orleans. It is just a really unique and interesting city. And I think it's really cool to have that narrative in the American culture.
Sure. I agree. I've got nothing.
I would like to go to New Orleans, and I would like to meet a voodoo priestess. I'd like to talk to somebody about voodoo, and I'm like, so really the voodoo doll, explain this to me. Also, why do I have to dance backwards through a doorway? That's a thing.
Okay.
Look, I can't explain it to you, but because I don't understand.
Right.
But
you want to be, you want somebody to explain it to you.
I want somebody to explain voodoo to me, and does it really work? And please give me instructions. I have some ideas of people that I could use it on.
Okay.
So, it's not you.
Thanks.
By the way, you're safe.
I was watching you to see how your eyes were. So, yeah.
What does that mean?
I just was looking.
Yep. I would like to use some voodoo.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I'd also like to have a seance. Do you want to have a seance in this house?
I'm all right for now.
Oh, no. I think it would be really fun. We could find out for real if this house is haunted.
Could we?
Yes.
Okay.
If we did a seance and something was like, it's the man, I'm not going to say his name, but it's the man that owned the house. I built it, and I did it just for you, Jen.
Okay. We'll think about it.
Well, we could film it. We could film a seance.
Mm-hmm.
I need somebody to reach out to me and tell me how to do a seance, and then maybe we could just do like a Zoom call, and we could like seance you in.
Oh, boy.
I think that
Seance you in.
I would seance you in. I need somebody to tell me how to do a seance, because
You're good at research. I think you've got this.
No, but I need somebody, like, I need an adult in the room, because, like, experiments with me, this is how I view cooking, okay? I'm like, it's probably fine. Usually it's not. And also, you should use less salt than you think you should, but I want to use more salt. So, that went awry. But let me just say this. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you're subscribed or following so you don't miss our future episodes. Bonus content if you want, patreon.com/House of Syx. You can also find us on YouTube and TikTok at House of Syx. Clips, extra content. It's sometimes funny. I went on a whole rant about birds last week. That was fun.
Indeed.
Yep. Ratings and reviews help. Sharing's fun. Sharing is caring, okay? I think that you should remember that when you listen to this podcast. But so, yeah, we appreciate you no matter what. If you think you know what really happened in this case, and I don't know how you did, but if you think you know who did it, you should let us know.
Sure.
You should tell us.
Be helpful.
You think that it was Bob? Like that guy. I knew he looked guilty as hell. And so, or if you have an interesting case you want to hear, you can let us know. We like to hear your feedback. You can reach out to us on all the places I just mentioned. You can also email us at houseofsyx@gmail.com. Yeah, so that's it. That was fun. We'll be back soon. We're doing episodes every 2 weeks now, dropping on Tuesdays. That's fun. Tuesdays are fun.
Fun Tuesday, not just for Taco Tuesday. No, it's more than that now.
Yeah, or jazzing it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So keep the jazz playing, okay?
Bye.
Bye.